Today I'm going to be making some pizza dough. This video is for the novice. This is for the amateur. This is for the home cook, the enthusiast. I'm honestly making this video for my mother because she texted me from Florida and she's like, give me a dough recipe for pizza. I give it to her and she calls me 3 days later saying it didn't work. A very foolproof, simple pizza dough recipe that you guys can make at home. We're going to make a straightforward pizza dough that's really easy to do in your home oven, or if you have a pizza oven like an Uni or a Gosney or something like that. I'm going to be mixing in a KitchenAid. Now, a lot of pizza guys will say you need a certain mixer to make pizza dough. It's just not true at all. Obviously, if you have a spiral mixer, that's going to yield you a different product. There's a lot of things you can geek out when it comes to that type of mixer. But if you only have a KitchenAid, do not worry. You can make pizza dough in a KitchenAid. I don't care what all these guys that are trying to sell you stuff on YouTube say. You could do it. The recipe will be in the description, but this recipe starts with 1,000 grams of flour. The water comes first. 650 grams of water are going to go first into our bowl. For 1,000 grams of flour, I'm going to use 3.5 to 4 grams of yeast. Instant or dry active yeast. If you're using instant yeast, you can add it to the flour. You don't have to moisten it first and hydrate it. If it's dry active, you want to hydrate it. And we're going to do, I don't care what it is. For me personally, I don't care what kind of yeast I'm using. Whatever yeast I use, it goes in the water to hydrate. Right to the water we just measured out, okay? So the yeast goes right in. This happens to be a jewelry scale, so this is incredibly accurate when I'm doing like a gram of something. Not necessary if you have a high quality scale. This company, this is my favorite digital scale. It's super accurate and it goes in half grams, meaning if you have 1.5 grams of an item on here, it'll give you the 0.5. A lot of them are just in gram increments. ETEKCITY, a Tech City. And then this guy is just something I got off Amazon. So we added our yeast to the water that we measured out. I'm gonna whisk it. I just want to make sure that my yeast is fully incorporated and it gets hydrated. Room temperature water went into this in the beginning. Then we added our yeast. One of the most important things in making pizza is the type of flour you're using. So today I'm using Americana from Caputo. You can get this on Amazon, I think. Now I'm putting my flour in a separate bowl. My water's here, my yeast is here. This recipe is a 65% hydration, meaning there's 65% of the 1,000 grams of flour that you're using that is water. You can go a little lower if you want a dough that's a little more manageable and easier to work with. I like 65 because it just really works for the style of pizza we're doing. Now we're gonna measure out our salt. I like to measure my salt separately because salt, if you add the salt on your scale to the water and you like over pinch it or you add too much, or it could really jam you up because you can't take salt out of the water. Do not use really coarse salt. It won't melt into the dough. So we want a fine salt. So we're gonna measure out 25 grams of salt. Now, a little trick, what I like to do, not necessary, but just a little trick for you guys. Take a ladle. So we're gonna take a ladle and we're gonna add a little bit of that yeast and water mixture to the salt. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna hydrate the salt so that there's no crusty like pieces in your dough. If you're using a thicker salt, you could do this as a trick if you don't have fine salt. You don't have to do this, you can add the salt later, but I'm just showing you a trick where you can take some of the water that you had, your yeast and water mixture, it's not that complicated, and I added that to my salt that I just measured out. Now we're gonna measure out our olive oil. This recipe, we're gonna do about 20 grams of olive oil. I happen to be using some organic olive oil. Just use something that's extra virgin, something that's nice. You could use avocado oil. You don't have to use olive oil. Obviously I like to use olive oil, but 24 grams of olive oil off to the side. Now we're gonna start mixing our dough. So here we are, we have our water and our yeast that has been combined, okay? We have our salt with a little bit of this water that we already mixed in the salt. If you don't do this mix process, then it would just be salt, flour, 1,000 grams, and olive oil. Looking good. Now at this point, you can add your olive oil right in. Use a rubber scraper just so you get all that olive oil in there. So let's add the flour right in there. So now we got this on low speed, guys. Carefully, if you want, take a rubber spatula and you can scrape down the sides if you feel like you need to. So this is my salt mixture. We're gonna go right in. So we're gonna let this go for about 8 minutes on low speed. If it starts to combine, what you'll notice is, and potentially, the dough's gonna start to build itself on top of that hook and go all the way up to where the top is spinning here. You don't want that to happen, so just take a rubber spatula and gently come in carefully and push it down. And that's it. About 8 minutes. You can go up to like 12 minutes on this, okay? All right, so take the hook and press the rest of that dough out. This is a bowl scraper or a bench scraper as we call it in the industry. And then basically this is gonna help us scrape the bowl and take the dough and put it on the bench. I'm gonna put it right like that. At this point you can change your scale and go to ounces and do about 12-ounce dough balls. For every ounce of dough you have is about 1 inch of pizza. So if you want a 12-inch pizza, do a 12-ounce dough ball. For you folks that aren't comfortable with like, you know, making pizza dough balls, take it in your hand and tuck the outside to the inside. You're making a balloon. Think about a balloon, right? So we're tucking, and then when you get that shape, you see the shape, then you gently just like pretend you're making a balloon and take your thumb and start to pinch. My right hand is turning towards me, and my left hand, my thumb is pinching, and you land it, and done. Now we have 5 dough balls. These are cheap online. They're aluminum pizza dough containers. If you have a bowl, like a stainless steel bowl or a glass bowl, you could use a glass bowl with a lid. You wanna make sure you have a lid because there's no oxygen getting in there. We're gonna put our dough balls right in here, and then these have lids. You go right on top. We wanna let this sit in the refrigerator overnight. These are gonna go in the refrigerator overnight, and then tomorrow we'll make pizza. All right, guys, so we just made our sauce. Whole plum tomatoes. Starting with the tomatoes, we did some olive oil, we did some sea salt, pepper I add, and then some chef dust. Chef dust is something you're gonna hear me talk about all the time. It was called something else when I lived in Italy. I call it chef dust because it's so universal. You could use it in so many ways, but especially for like Italian food and pizza sauce, this is like my secret weapon for my pizza sauce. So chef dust is in here, and I had some house-made oregano, and that's it. That's what I do for my sauce. Pizza sauce is done off to the side.
Here we are. This is a couple days after I made the dough, which is fine. I brought it out to room temp. I like to bring the dough out to room temp for about an hour, maybe even 2 hours. If you're making this at home, that's a good move to do, and that's what we did here. Handful of semolina just to coat it. And if you're using these vessels, you'll notice they're a little tough to get the dough out, so I just do circles with my bench scraper, and then it eventually just releases. I put the excess on the bench a little bit, and then our dough ball comes down. I'm using this for a pizza peel. You can buy these online. If you have a regular old pizza peel, that's fine too. If you have wood, whatever's gonna fit in the oven. Let's just get right into this. We're making a clam pie. I try to keep my crust here, and I'm just working the center of the dough. You wanna make sure you're not sticking either. You can lift up and just check every so often. And if you wanna use a rolling pin, use a rolling pin. If you're new to pizza, use a rolling pin. I'm gonna just gently, I'm using my knuckles, letting the gravity kind of stretch out the dough. Once I achieve that right there, I like that size. That's gonna be a 12-inch pizza right here. If you end up with 13, that's fine too. Go with a light dusting of semolina or rice flour. Don't go too heavy. This is just gonna burn in your oven. What we'll do is we're gonna take our pizza and go right on top. This is a white wine lemon. This is a sauce that we made with white wine, garlic, shallots, lemon zest, and heavy cream. Okay, and I'm just gonna spread. Of course, you could use a ladle or a spoon, but I like to use this little spatula. All right, there it is. Now for cheese, I'm using a few different cheeses, guys. I'm gonna start with my fresh mozzarella. I cut it into like batons, and I'm not gonna go incredibly heavy. And then next, this is a secret cheese that I like to use. We'll call it cheddar. Some Parmesan cheese, some real Italian parm. The Reggiano stuff, right down. And then we got some locatelli, AKA pecorino romano. I'm also gonna finish this pie with parm, so I don't need to go crazy heavy with the locatelli and the parm. These are our clams. I'll show you the brand after I make the pizza. These are sea clams that are raw. I think I got these from Whole Foods. Sea Watch International, 100% natural sea clams. Certified sustainable, so there's that, right? And there's no weird stuff in here, it's just clams and water. That's why I like this. Normally I would shuck my own because the fresh clams in Idaho didn't look good. And then next we have some guanciale. So this is a play on like a New England clam chowder kind of vibe without the potato, you know what I mean? And if you don't have guanciale, you can use bacon, pancetta, you know, whatever you want to do. Now we're gonna go in the oven, do a shake test. As long as she moves, you're in safe zone. That's gonna tap off any semolina. I like to do that move, clean up around it, because whatever's on the peel is gonna just burn in your oven, so that looks pretty clean. Right inside this oven we go. I'm gonna stick my peel all the way in. I'm gonna do one last spin, guys. I mean, look at this. That is looking beautiful. The bottom just looks fantastic. All right, guys, she's coming out. Yeah, that's done. All right, look at that. The biggest thing is wait until you see the undercarriage on that. I would say get some of these little baker's racks, and you want to let your pies cool before you serve them, and definitely before you cut them. While it's hot, a little more parm, a little bit of the locatelli. Let's get that locatel on there. How you doing? That's pretty much it. I mean, you could add some parsley to this. You could add some herb, some basil, but take a photo for Instagram. Let's use the fancy West Elm plates for this one. So this dough style would be a New York pizza dough style. We have beautiful bottom layer crust. We could see the brown and then it turns into a light inflation. There's no gum line, which is very important. The way that white sauce melts with the cheese, oh my God. I wonder what Portnoy would give this one. Whew. Clam pie, New York style pizza, out of the tote oven, from scratch, start to finish. 12 ounces, 12 inches. How you feeling? I don't know what else to say. If you have any questions, hit us up. Enjoy, salute, and bada binga.